Hello Orchid friends, welcome back to my channel. Wherever you are, I hope you're having a great day, staying healthy and staying safe. What we have today is one of my mini Phalaenopsis orchid. Again, this is a grocery store phal, so it's a no ID, but it has been such a reliable bloomer. So I'm really happy to be making this video and share this year's bloom with you. So this orchid last year also bloomed with a relatively good display. This year's performance is definitely not as good as last year's. Nonetheless, it still is one of my most interesting Phalaenopsis orchid in my collection. Why? Because this orchid has a bunch of crazy aerial roots, which I purposely left outside of the pot. Last year, I could have had repotted this orchid, but I decided not to do it because I love seeing orchid roots, and because last year it bloomed really well, so I thought to myself maybe one more year would be okay. And it was okay, except that I think because with all the cares being the same and the same environment, this orchid underperformed compared to last year. I think repot really is the only solution, because I really suspect that the medium is getting old, and this orchid might have some, a little bit of root issue. It could just be that old roots are simply so old that it's not functioning or not taking in as much water or nutrients. And that's why this year this orchid is only gave me 5 blooms. And right now this video clip is a sort of second half of its bloom cycle, so you're only seeing 3, but later in this video you'll see some photos of this orchid having 5 buds. So if we maybe go back in time, because this orchid has been with me for quite some time, so if we go back in time to maybe 2018, this orchid was pretty young then. It was already blooming when I first purchased it, and then I quickly repotted the orchid after its first store-bought blooms were gone, and then ever since then it has been grown in this little clay pot. And I remember the media was just whatever I had at the time. It was a mixture of lava rock and sphagnum moss and maybe a little bit of bark chip. It was like a jumble mumble of everything. Okay, so this orchid 2019, it was growing, and then until 2020 I noticed that it was shooting out a spike. Early 2020 that was. And this year what I have done differently is I did not want this orchid to grow its flower or flower spike in a pendant way, so early on I decided to stake it. I ran out of the normal flower spike stake, so I went out and bought some bamboo skewer sticks for barbecue, bamboo skewers. Okay, so that's what I use, and I wanted to train the flower spike early on, because if you don't, when you want to later on, the flower spike may be a little too hard to train sometimes, and you then run the risk of snapping it. So I wanted to train early on, and then I use a clip. And then as it grow longer, I move the clip up a little bit to train it so that it grow along the bamboo stick. Okay, so some time went by. I think it was maybe about a month and a half went by, and then it started to mature its buds. And that's when I stopped moving the clip. So this orchid was relatively low maintenance. My care for it is really the same care as what I provide to most of my orchid, and it is 25% fertilizer plus 1/4 cup of water. And this orchid receives watering and or fertilizer once a week. I usually water most of my orchids on the weekends, so this orchid really is not fussy. It's really pretty in terms of its color, and with a little bit of you know, red and yellow, and then this really obvious red lip. I think it's a very beautiful color combination. The only thing is that it does not have any fragrance, but you know, I have enough fragrant Phalaenopsis orchid that I think it's okay to have a few peasant phals that are just good to look at but not to smell at. Okay, so back to this orchid. The reason I didn't repot this orchid and put all the area roots back into the container when I had a chance last year was because I was thinking maybe one more year, because I can enjoy watching the area roots a little bit more. But what really caused me to want to repot this orchid, and I think I definitely will this year, is that its area roots are just taking up too much space. And every time if I ever need to move orchids around, I have to take extra precaution. And sometimes I feel that's just too much trouble. And because this year I think this orchid is underperforming, and I think that it's time to, you know, for a repot, so I can inspect the root system just to see if there's any dead roots or dead tissue I should just trim away, and then repot these area roots back into the medium so that this orchid would have more roots inside the medium to be able to absorb water and nutrients. And also, repot is another great opportunity to reposition your orchid. Like this one is already growing sideways, and I really want to reposition this orchid so that it grows a little more upright. I know it would always eventually grow pendant or lean toward one side, because you know it always grows toward the sun, the leaves anyway. So I know it would happen, but at least, you know, it's a little bit of adjustment. Okay, so here is just something I do to keep this orchid hydrated. Its area roots are really long, and occasionally when I remember, I would dunk all these area roots inside of a cup like that. And after a while, they green up, and I know that it's hydrated. So it's looking really good. But I can't do that every week or consistently. It's only when I remember. So primarily that quarter cup of water is really what this orchid gets every week. So I think a repot is definitely due. And if I ever do that, I will definitely make a quick video to give you an update and see how this orchid does after that. This is all I have for you today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you would like to get more orchid related videos from my channel, please subscribe and turn on the notification. I want to wish you happy growing, and I will talk to you in my next video. Ciao!